Hey guys, alrighty, I am back for another part of this cup that we're working on, which I will show it here in a minute of where it's at and so forth. But I want to get this resin mixed up first and foremost so that it can start getting where we want it to be before we put it on the cup. So, hope y'all are enjoying this tutorial. I'm just looking to see. Yeah, I'm actually getting pretty even, which is phenomenal. Alrighty. Hope you're enjoying this series. Hope you've watched the other videos leading up to this one. We're getting super close on this cup. So I am going to mix about 80 ml of resin tonight. So that's 40 of A and 40 of B. I prefer pouring B first. It's just my preference. This is Artist Resin Medium Viscosity. So just kind of checking where I'm at on there. You could mark the outside of your cups. I may have done that in a couple other videos. I don't know, truthfully. Sometimes I mark them, sometimes I don't. Kind of just depends on how confident I am of where my line is. 40 and 80 are pretty easy for me to see on this cup, so I didn't mark. Counterculture DIY. They didn't always put these little stoppers in. They're a pain to get in and out, but they do help the resin last a little longer because it lets less exposure, potential exposure, just from not a good seal on your cap. So I do appreciate it. It's hard to maybe see, but A, in this particular brand, A is definitely thicker. It's going to come out a lot slower. Some artists will give their they'll warm their resin by giving it a warm little bath first. Put the bottle in some warm water. I think I did it once in my resin time. I just didn't find that it was, I don't want to say, like, it just, yeah, it worked. It does heat up the resin and make it a little bit thinner for sure, but I just didn't seem feasible for me to do that every time, so I just don't. I put a little bit of rubbing alcohol on this paper towel just so that I can get that excess stickiness of resin off of me. I like to, if I remember to, put my caps on, like pour it like I just did, where I basically take a cap off, pour it, put it back together, because then you don't mix your caps. I've done that. It's fixable. Just a little challenging. Alrighty. Grab a stir stick. I thought I had one over here, but I don't. So just a little plastic stir stick. It's just like a popsicle stick. The only difference is it's not wood. So it's not porous. So I'm going to mix this up. Noticing, y'all have heard me say this, bubbles just happen when you're mixing the resin. I just find that I'm going to end up with some bubbles. And for me, it's fine, especially on this cup. There's so much glitter, you're not going to see a bubble. But I do try to go a little bit slow, go to all my edges. I'm not sure if you can tell on camera, but like, you can see that it's kind of milky, stringy. That's not mixed well. So, I go by look. Some people go by time. Everybody's kind of different. Big thing that I find, at least with counterculture, is that I want to go by the look. I want to make sure that it has a clean, clear crystal look when I lift up my stick. Now, I will go ahead and do some times where I wipe off my stick just to get that resin to mix into. I will stir left, I will stir right, I will stir the edges. I make sure I get all the way on the bottom, across the entire bottom, not just on the edges, because you want that inside to be done. Sometimes I'll do figure eights. Again, relatively slow. The less you pick your stir stick up out of your resin, less bubbles that will create. So you don't want to be doing this and lifting it up and out, because you will end up with more bubbles. You create air pockets by doing so. It's hard to tell because this cup is just, being that it's silicone, it's going to be hard to tell. That's why lifting it up and looking looks way less milky, much clearer, and for me, that's about where I want it. I'm not seeing little strings of white or cloudiness. It actually looks very clear. Yeah, super like runny. So I'm going to show you guys in a couple of different phases of that. So that's why I wanted to get this mixed, so that I could let that start sitting. So I'm going to set it aside, let it sit for probably about 10-ish minutes or so. That'll give me time to kind of prep things around. Clean up, move these back where they go. And that's, I work in a smallish area, basically. This is ultimately kind of my workspace. I mean, yes, I have other tables and I have other things, but everything has a place it's got to go back to. So, I like to wipe off my gloves as much as possible. Time to bring our turner into view. Let me get her cup. So, she's been sitting over here on basically a tumbler stand that I have, and she is gorgeous. I mean, just stunning. I'm just so happy with it, with how it came out. I love how some of these flowers and butterflies just kind of give a peekaboo effect. Like you wouldn't see them unless you're looking for them. And then you see them. I'm so happy it worked out to have 7 butterflies on there. If you didn't watch the last series episode, then you won't understand that comment. But yeah, I am majorly happy. So, if you're just joining, first time, this is a 30-ounce tumbler. It's been glittered times 2, maybe 3. I lost count. I'll have to watch the video myself, the episodes, to see. And then resin and temporary tattoos on it to give this effect that we got going. So yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and put, it's got already a cup holder, turner holder. This is tape, which will peel right off when we are all done. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm just that up here. I still need to figure out what to do on the bottom. And I got to figure out how to get an origami crane on. I have thought on that for a few nights. I've looked online. I think I'm going to cut one on my Cricut. And just put some vinyl. But the question is, where will I put it? It may be what goes on the bottom. And depending tonight, I might just mix. I have some of this, it's mostly the silvery white, but I accidentally poured it with some pink. So I might throw that on there. I might not. I don't know. Let me see. I might just put a little bit of this with resin. Just the moon dust, which is what this white is. So. Alright, so we've only been about 3 minutes, but I want to show y'all kind of what's going on with our resin. I want to bring this back into focus for you. So, I'm bringing this up pretty slowly just so that you can see how it's sitting. There's some bubbles forming. That's those bubbles coming up from the resin. That's perfect. We want that. One thing you can do to help those is take your cup and just gently pop it onto your table, and that's going to help shift those bubbles up as well. So that's what I want. I want those to keep gravitating towards the top. And before I move my stir stick, any bubbles like that, I will pop with a heat gun. I have counterculture, upside down, counterculture DIY. I'm on the lowest setting. I always do it away from my resin at first, just in case there's dust in it. And then I just do a quick little, and it's good. So I had it on longer than, like, I had the heat gun on longer than I actually did hitting it with the heat. So you saw it popped all those bubbles that were by our stir stick. So now we're getting a smidge thicker. We don't want it to be thick or sticky, but definitely we want it to be thicken up a little bit, just so that it's not fully dripping off of our cup when we put it on. Oh, I'm sorry, I was putting something away and I bumped y'all. So, again, this is where normally I'd probably go do something else, but I want you guys to get the real time of this so that you can see everything. Let me move that back into screen. Working with a small screen here, so try to get you situated. This book I've been using for weights of things. I want it somewhat accessible. So typically during this time, like I said, I would go do something else. I'm not going to go far. I'm going to stay within my craft area. But I definitely will take time to just clean up, pick up, put things away. It's a good time for me to get that done. I just realized I left my lid in the space. See, while doing all this, and boy, oh boy, I don't even know what that is underneath there. But, yeah, that's going to be fun cleaning, y'all. Fun cleaning all that glitter off of there. Lord. I, did that once before, and it was awful to clean. So I really thought I'd be better going forward, but clearly it's not. That's okay. It happens. It will, if I eat a little glitter, I guess it won't be the end of the world, right? It's a cup for me, so I'm not overly concerned here at this point, but I will wash that obviously really good, so please don't think that I'm just going to go start drinking out of it. Alrighty, so it's looking good. I don't really have any more bubbles popping up, which is fine. Oh, I flipped my stir stick so the bubbles on the other side can come up, so that's good. I'm going to show you guys while we're waiting how I would clean these up. So these had some like UV resin in them and some pigment. So I'm going to move this just to the side here so that I don't mess with it. So basically I just take a little bit of rubbing alcohol. If I didn't have a glove on, I would definitely use the paper towel to avoid me touching that directly. But because I had a glove on, that kind of worked out perfect, just to kind of loosen that resin that's in there. The other thing is, like, that keeps sticking, so a little bit of masking tape. You could also use packing tape or Scotch tape, whichever one you have handy. I just happen to have this in the space, so. Now look at that. Already done, clean, ready for the next mix. Now the underside is really dirty, so I am going to go ahead. I'll have this tape, because I stack my little cups anyway, so I don't really want to put this one away with the bottom all crazy. Tape would be easier without gloves, but I really don't want to have to take them on and off. So there's my little bonus part of this video. Might be more. We'll see what comes up. Alright, so same thing with this one. It just takes a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Just rub that around. Now the color pigment in this one probably is not going to come out completely. That's fine. It's not going to damage the next whatever I stir in it. So I'm not overly concerned by that by any means. Now we are getting closer to approaching our 10 minutes. The only reason why I know is because I didn't set a timer or anything. I just watched what time it was when I said we should leave it for 10. Alright. Normally I'd probably get a fresh paper towel too, just to wipe that out. But because I do have the tape here and I have so much glitter in the space, the curse of the glitter. It's so pretty though, but this is the curse of it. It's literally everywhere. Don't tell my family, but I've been seeing glitter all over them past couple weeks. I'm like, whoopsie. Like, you know how you just catch a little glint of glitter on somebody's face or their clothing? Yep. That's just me adding my little fairy dust to my family. Sure that they love it. Especially, actually my 9-year-old wouldn't care. She'd be all about it. My husband and my 13-year-old would probably be like, what the heck, Mom? Why'd you do that? The other thing this is good for is cleaning off the mat. Just will help clean up any debris. Look at all that. Let's let the camera focus so that you can see. Look at all that stuff it picked up. Alright, so clean 2 cups. Little cups. Slide in. So, bring this back over so y'all can see. See those bubbles there? So I'm going to show you on camera. I just got to turn this on away from it so I pulled the resin out. Alright. So here's the resin. Now there's some micro bubbles in there for sure. I'm not really worried about them. But I'll give it a little more heat that time. Just so that we can try to blast them. Yes. Much better. This is about where we want it. I don't want to let it sit for too much longer, personally, because you do have a limited amount of time to get it where you want it. And I don't want to be past that time. I don't want to stretch it. I know some artists, that thing had so much glitter on it. My gracious. Some artists have it down to a science of what they do, but I'm more of a, I win it. Okay, so this is a silicone mat. It just helps protect the wood on here. I'm just a little bit particular about that. I don't like that big mess. So this will get cleaned off when this project is done. I'm actually probably going to turn it this way so that it protects some of my mat too over here. But for now, I'm not really worried about getting it more messy. And then we'll clean all that off, and then you can just throw it in some soapy water, which will help clean it too. Alright, I am going to, I know I just laid that out all nice, but I'm going to bring this down a little bit. So that hopefully, 1, I don't have super long arms, but 2, so that it's more in line. So I love when it spins away from me. That's just, for me, naturally, to pull the resin. That's what works. But do what works for you. I am not going to show in this video clicking it the other way because the spinner typically prompts to spin towards me. It's just its way that it normally will go. So it's about every 3rd or 4th time that it spins away. So I don't want to sit here clicking back and forth. So getting that spinning. I've done this the last few times. I am going to actually grab a little Dixie cup, like a little paper Dixie cup. It just allows me to have a little bit more control than the silicone cup, and I'm not worried about over pouring onto here. So the idea is you want to get a relatively even coat, but you're not super worried because resin is self-leveling as long as you have it set up correctly to self-level. So the key with a tumbler is, if you noticed, I was fiddling with the tumbler on the arm, just trying to make sure it's as level as possible. Now this tumbler does slant anyway, so you're not going to get it perfect. And then I'm just pouring a little bit of resin and taking my gloved hand and pulling it towards me to move that resin around. And you'll see me do this all the way through it. And then I'll go a little bit different direction too with it. And it's good that we're working with the resin right now. I can tell that it's warmed up. It's not hot, but it definitely is warmer. I can feel it through the glove and through the cup, through my glove, through the cup even. But when I'm spreading it with my right hand here, I can definitely tell it's warm. We do not want to flash cure. That's very scary and not fun. Flash curing, if you're new to resin, is where the resin reacts too quickly and it heats up too fast. And therefore, you have a flash cure or fast cure. It's like a rapid curing. Cures so fast and gets so hard so quick. So this particular resin will be cured in about 8 hours. I'll let it spin overnight, so it will get close to 12 hours spinning, maybe 10 hours spinning. And I find for me that's about perfect for them. And then it's hard, but I will let it still set for another 12 to 24 hours before I would do something with it. Part of that's just my lifestyle because of my family and kids, and I work full time. So I don't get the privilege of some artist who can come back to it and work on it right away. I don't get that. So like I said, part of that's just my life situation that I am unable to. But what I'm gonna have to move this camera stand. I keep bumping y'all. I don't like that because I'm sure it's annoying to y'all. I'm gonna have to clean up these edges up here for sure. And that was a really, really thin layer that I just put on. So I'm gonna go a little bit thicker just to make sure that I get a good solid layer. It's probably going to need one more after this anyway, and that one I'll probably do really thin. But as you see, I like to go this way too, up and down, just making sure that I'm getting an even amount of resin all over. I don't even know what I was saying. Oh, with a flash or fast cure, I've had it cure up in 20 minutes on a flash cure. That was a little terrifying. A little too fast, shall we say. Okay, so this hand doesn't have resin on it. So I'm going to use it to add a little glitter in to my cup. And my dominant hand is my right hand, so don't mind if this looks awkward because it probably is awkward. So I'm just mixing what little bit of resin I had in there with the glitter, and I want to add it to this bottom. So I'm going to basically just bring it on my fingers and add some to the bottom. It's not going to be perfect by any means, but I'm not looking to get a perfect coat on the bottom right now. I just want to get some sort of base. Like I said, this at least has one more coat of resin, maybe two. Depends on what I do. Depends on what I do at the bottom, and it depends on where I throw my crane and all that fun. Actually, that's looking really cute, the bottom. I can't show y'all because of the way the camera is and so forth, but it's looking really cute. It's not too much glitter, but it's, I think, enough that it would give us a base to work with. And the cup is repelling some of the resin right here on this edge. So I'm just going to keep working that in so that hopefully doesn't keep repelling. And what I mean by repelling, it's just making what's called a fisheye. That's what resin people call it. Where I use glitter with this glove, I am going to toss it. I try to reuse my gloves if I can. But because I had glitter all over that, there's just no way. No way. So we're going to get a new glove. Okay. So I am kind of looking, just making sure that we put enough resin on there, that there's not any weird spots that are repelling it, gonna create a fisheye or a divot. Resin artists call it a fisheye. I'm not really sure why. I should probably research that. I just know that that's a term that people use for it. It's basically just where your resin is being repelled by whatever you put on it. It could have been that, like, oils of my fingers touching it could have created enough of a resistance to make that resin try to resist. I don't know why my turner keep kind of bounce it too. Look at me. I don't know if it's where this is. Like, don't be bouncing on me. Do a smooth turn. It's also probably the weight. This is a pretty long cup. That's probably what it is that, and probably a little bit of the weight isn't distributed perfectly, is what I'm seeing. But I think it's gonna be okay. I'm a little worried if I were to try to adjust the cup now, it would do more damage than good, if that makes sense, because I would end up, unfortunately, what would happen is I would end up touching the resin that's already self-leveling, and it's self-leveling really well. So I kind of don't want to ruin that by trying to shift it on the turner. So, and if you hear a dog barking, please forgive me. Our neighbor's dog barks all day and night, a lot of times. Alright, so we had more than enough resin. I really didn't need to mix up 80. And that's something I'm going to note. It's hard to see on camera, but we have about 45 left. Next time, if I'm only going to do this, I probably only will mix about 40 mLs, because that should be enough to cover what we're doing. But I want, and that's because we went on a relatively smooth layer. Like, if we were doing the glitter layer and doing the resin, we used way more than that. But I wanted to mix 80 because I have this random pour that I'm extra pour one that I'm working. So I just thought, heck, if I'm going to mix resin, I'll at least pour into this as well. So I'm going to slide this guy right on back. He's looking really good. So I don't want to bump him. I don't want to mess with him just because he's spinning well, looking good, such. So try to put these in where you can view it. So I'm fine because this had a little bit of glitter in it. Just to go ahead and do that, I'm going to throw in a little bit of this glitter that I have just so I can use it up more than anything, because that's what this is. This is just a dump pour. So it's basically just getting randomness put into it, basically. Okay, so no rhyme, no reason. It's like extra resin goes in there. I'll put a little bit of clear. That glitter is so pretty. As much of a nightmare as glitter is, it's really pretty. I want a little, this is just some alcohol ink. I'll put a couple drops, maybe 3. Let that go in, get a little blue going. I don't want to do too much just because I don't want to thin the resin too much. Here's a purple one. I kind of got blues, pink, and purples going. This is like my color trio right now that I'm like loving. Let's just, I think there's a little more in here. Maybe. Yeah, it's coming. And I didn't want to let this sit too long because, like I said, when I was putting it on there, it was definitely getting warm. And I would tell you that it definitely was getting warm as I put it on there. But also, I noticed it when I was picking up the paper cup. I'm going to do that. And I want to mix it up just a smidge for us. And throw in a mica powder, and I have a color in mind. Just gonna see which one I want. This one. So this is Mermaid by Counterculture. Of course, I transferred it into a jar. If there is a series up already, it's up before this video will come out, that shows how to transfer micas into jars, because lordy be, you do not want to do what I did the first time, which was have literally mica powder everywhere. So you think about a glitter explosion, except turn it into mica powder explosion. See how powdery that is? Like, imagine that being all over your craft space. Literally, I was covered head to toe. Like, my arms were silver because it was a silver color that I was transferring. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun, y'all. Don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes and watch that tutorial. So I just mix that in. Basically, with micas, you just don't want to leave a big chunk of powder. Where this is a dump pour, I'm not overly worried about it if I were to, but micas, if you have a big chunk of powder, you would potentially notice it, especially in coasters. So with micas, I would say just mix well enough that your powder gets all the way mixed in. I might have put a smidge too much powder in this little amount, but again, being that it's a dump pour, I'm not like overly concerned. Resin is definitely warmer at this point, so I know that I'm running on limited time. Definitely warmer, definitely stickier, more gooey. So it's good that we're just about done. We about have all of it. I think this is gonna look cool. It's kind of fun. I'm just adding the clear in there just to give it, it will create some definition. Probably won't see that, you won't necessarily see clear, but you'll have some definition for sure. Created where you might see like ladder of the mermaid mica that I put in. You might see just a little bit lighter area of the glitter or the alcohol ink just because the clear going in, which is fun. Now, as just a little fun thing, I am going to take my stick. This is a silicone stick, so I'm not worried about it damaging my mold. I wouldn't put something sharp in if it were me. And I'm going to poke it a total of 8 times. Actually 7, because 7's my number right now. Okay. So I basically cleared as much resin as I can from this cup and have placed it in there. So I would take this and just a couple little pops, especially if this was all fresh resin. Now this was done other days, these other layers, so that's what's going to make this really unique, is you're just going to have this really multi-layered, which will be neat. But if that was all fresh, it would be really easy, but it's making a really clanky noise just because that other resin is cured. Now I can see bubbles in here. It's a little hard on camera because those bubbles almost look like glitter pieces. So, little trick with molds like this. This is just the rubbing alcohol that I use, the 91%. It's in a little spray bottle. I got these bottles at the Dollar Tree. 2 for the price of 1. Now, I'm not going to spray it on my tumbler, because if I were to spray this on my tumbler, it would probably start to give fish eyes just because of the way it would separate. So that's why I'm putting my hand up, just to block the spray. And then I'm going to look. And that wasn't really 3 sprays. Somebody might be like, oh my gosh, you sprayed so much alcohol into it. I promise I didn't. It wasn't spraying. It didn't spray hardly any, so that's why. Last thing, I will take my heat gun on low, and I'm just going to blow it in around the edges. Make sure I don't touch that tumbler behind. Not too much heat for 2 reasons. 1, you do not want to heat up your resin too much, because you will start to get a flash cure. And like we've gone over, not fun. 2, I don't want to do too much heat, because you could potentially melt your mold, because it could become too hot and start to disform or melt the mold. So that's why. Now, I'm going to show you guys a little cleanup and how I'm going to cover this to protect it just from the regular air stuff. So, this cup I'm not worried about. I'm going to let it cure up here in this space. It will get fully cure. I'll toss it. It'll be done. Easy peasy. But, I'm going to put a little rubbing alcohol on my stir stick, or on my napkin, and then just wipe off my stir stick. I'll leave it moist or wet. Moist is a weird word. Don't really love it. So why I used it, I don't know. Just kind of came out. But I leave it wet when I put it down on my space, because it doesn't have resin on it. I'm going to let it air dry. It's good. Same thing with this one. Just wiping it. Now, yes, this has resin on it. You can see it right there because it was colored. So I know it does. However, this has a ton of resin on it. So this first round, I'm not going to get all of it out of there. And I know that. So I'm going to use the dirty paper towel to get as much as I can. So I'm taking, for me it's 2 fingers. And I'm just using it to wipe around the base and around the inside. And you see I'm getting the outside covered because this glove is dirty. But that's okay, because I'm going to clean that up too. I'm not worried about that at this point. My concern is getting as much out as I can from the inside. So that is all wiped out as best as I can with the one that I had. So then I get a fresh one, and I go ahead and I put some more on. And this one I'll use to wipe this glove off so that I can get the outside and try to get this cup cleaned up. So now I'm going to do the outside. Now this outside has quite a bit of glitter on it. So normally I would use it to then go back on the inside, but because it has so much glitter, I don't want to do that. I'm going to get a fresh one to then do the outside. Like I said, normally I would just go ahead and use it on the inside, but I do not want to, just for the sake of, I don't want to add more glitter than might be inside that cup. Alright, so one more. And this should have it, because you can see it's pretty well empty. You could put this upside down. I think I've mentioned this in other videos. Although sometimes I don't know what order I'm going to drop the video, so that tip may not be in it just yet. You may not have seen it if you're watching from start to finish. But I just find this is so much easier. I feel like it's faster. And it works better. It allows me to stay in the space and just kind of keep an eye on things for that first little bit. So, now we have a fully clean silicone cup ready to be used for the next round. Granted, it did get a little glitter in it. I could use a little masking tape to get that out. The outside I'm not really worried about, because who cares? You're not mixing the resin in there. Since this is relatively a clean one, I go ahead and use it to wipe off my gloves. And I will keep that and use it at the beginning of my next project for that initial wipe out of a resin silicone cup that I mixed in. Now, I pull my gloves off in a way that I can reuse them. So these will get reused. I will use them until I either cover it like I did with glitter, and I feel like it's going to be more of a pain to clean up than and try to salvage than to throw it away, or until literally I bust it accidentally taking it off or on, just because sometimes with my hands being in there I'm sweating. I know it's gross, but it's reality. So that's what I do. Now, show you guys my trick. I keep a couple clear Sterilite totes in the area I'm working in, and I use them, and I'm going to bump y'all because I'm trying to get this over this without hitting the piece. And it's relatively big because it can go around my entire spinner. Alright, sorry y'all bounced a ton. Way more than I like it to, but let's see what it be. Okay, so that is now, I'm going to take you off my stand so that I can kind of show you. Now you can see that that is fully in that tub. Now I've left air to be able to go through, but it keeps, oh my gracious y'all, I just noticed something. I bumped the on-off switch. Whew. Ironically, it started spinning the same way. That's funny. Whew. Goodness, that could have been really bad. Because that could have, in the process, like I said, I'm going to have to move this stand. Because this stand is on the edge of this desk. I need to try to move it to the other desk that then leans over this. But basically, as I was trying to maneuver that tote over it, the tote was bumping my arm to hold the phone for the camera, and it caused the tote to then bump down on that spinner. So, good thing I saw that, and I noticed that the green light was no longer on the spinner. So, I was like, what just happened? Why did it stop? Simple. Whew. But could have been bad, because then we would have had one side full of resin, and the other side, and it would have dripped. Oh, it would have been a disaster. I'm going to not think about that, because that's going to stress me out. I'm going to go with it's looking good. I'm going to actually come down to where I can see it from underneath. Yeah, it looks good. We didn't have too thick of a coat on it, so that's another reason why just that short time it was off, it didn't make a difference. If you had a real thick coat, could have. I wouldn't do a thick coat anyway like that, but just saying. So anyway, this will protect it from air, dust in the air, things like that. If for some reason, which I'm really good about closing my the door to this room when I've got resin curing. So I'm not typically worried about this, but it would prevent like a cat just coming up and batting it. Because live from my mistakes. Learn from those mistakes. Cat is fine, by the way. He just got himself into a sticky mess. But, yeah, that's basically it. So this little beautiful cup is coming right along. Not much more to fill that dump pour one either, which I'm excited. I can't wait to finish it, to see it. Just the excitement to undo it. So, hope everybody's having a fantastic week. And, of course, we'll see you again soon. Bye. Hey y'all, so this is 2 videos merged together. The last one we did a coat of resin on. Now I am working to add the crane. I did cut this off of that double-sided tape or paper that has sticky paper basically. I cut a, what do I want to say? I cut the shape essentially of the crane on my Cricut, and you can see the 26. That was my mom's favorite number. It's going to include that. I basically did a stencil, and then I didn't like how that was working, so then I created this double-sided tape piece that has the crane on it, basically. So, sorry I didn't show that part because it's hard where I have to put that into a design space, put that onto my Cricut, and then get that all situated. But here you can see how this is going to have that crane shape. And I'm just trying to line up the 26 because I wanted to keep it a separate color from what the crane's going to actually be. I'm putting this whole piece on, knowing that I'm not going to stick something to the whole entire piece, but this gives me where I wanted the stickiness to be, essentially. So, as you see, I took off the one spot, and then these are a copper flake. My mom loved copper colored things, so I felt like those copper flakes were definitely something that I wanted to just incorporate another part of her, basically, especially with the crane. So I just rubbed the flake on there, and then I'm cleaning up. This is a mechanical pencil that I have taken the actual lead out of, and I have a sewing needle in it. And basically I use that with my Cricut, and it's like my weeding tool, and on this it's helping me peel those back, essentially what you would weed with your Cricut, but it allows me to peel those back, and then also cleans up and sharpens these edges where those gold flakes aren't laying exactly how I wanted them to, essentially. So yeah, that's what I use. And that has been, if you do a Cricut, and if that's one of the crafts that you do, or you incorporate that with, you know, your Tumbler making or your other things that you do, if you're like me, multi-crafter here that has like a zillion crafts and probably way too many, not really, but you know what I mean, then this tool is the best. You can buy them already made, but I found when I got my Cricut, I just made my own by doing a mechanical pencil. So I probably need to make a new one, but this one is like above all my favorite. The little rubber pad piece on the pencil like is coming off because it got stretched out too far. So really should treat myself to a new one, but you know when you have something that's like your favorite, it's hard to switch it up, and that's kind of where I'm at with this one. So each little piece, was extremely time consuming. I didn't record myself. I mean, I recorded the video, of course, but I didn't do the voice part until now because of the time consuming aspect of it. And my brain was like, I can't do the voice and I can't talk y'all through this because I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do it. And when I get that deep, I need that space just for my brain to really think it and work through it. So each little spot, just kind of working hard to go ahead and get that copper coloring onto the sticky part. Yes, there's going to be more white area once I get all this done. That is going to be, once I peel the white off, will be sticky. But you'll see how I address that here. But for first, we're just trying to get this copper foil laid in. And basically, it's just like spreading it on, laying it onto that. Sometimes you end up with a little bit, I want to say, like almost looks layered, which is kind of cool. I enjoy just kind of how this looked, and then try to flatten it a little bit too as I went. So that's kind of what's going along, and it's helping define that crane, helping give that look, the look of the crane. So crane has a lot of meaning for myself and my family, and if you want to learn more of that story, definitely watch the video that was done on folding origami cranes, and I walk through that process and I share the story behind it. So basically, just really, like, whenever we did the glitter with this sticky paper, double-sided sticky paper, it was the same thing. Just rubbing it really hard so that it definitely gets stuck to it. Now the 26, this is where it just became so challenging, because I was trying to keep the 26 to stay kind of where it's at, because I wanted it to, the 2 and the 6 to stay there and cover my purple, and then put on the copper around it. So you'll see, it just was very challenging, but all in all, it comes out relatively good. I think I might do a few things different if I were to do it again. I definitely probably would do a couple things different. I think that's with anything. We kind of learn as we go with these things. And that's what I would say, something I love about crafting, is that I'm always learning. It's always something new. And it keeps me engaged in it because of that. And I actually enjoy that process. So getting this covered, these flakes are really hard to work with, and my fingers got sticky, and then that made it like the flakes were sticking to my fingers, and so it definitely was challenging. If this wasn't for myself, I don't know if I would have had the patience, maybe. Although I tend to be very nice with my family and friends, so I guess I probably would have pushed on through. But I wouldn't maybe always recommend this technique, although it looks really cool. So basically then here with the 2 and the 6, I'm like, okay, now we got to get these guys off of here and get that kind of cleaned up. And as you see, I'm like, okay, well, did it give me those flakes come off of there? And just trying to peel them off of that 2, get them to stay where I want them to stay, but have the 2 and the 6 actually show so that you can see the 26 in there. And this is where this handmade tool that I have created for myself comes in really handy, because that needle gives you a sharp point to be able to go on it. So it's clearing that off, and I wanted to add more of the purple glitter. I just love this purple glitter. It's so pretty. So just really pushing it into that 2 and 6. And then, of course, tapping our glitter off, because you want it off. Well, then the glitter decides it's going to try to stick to the copper flakes. So isn't that nice? So then I was like, okay, we got to get the brush out. We're going to brush this glitter off of there. And then I had things sticking to the brush. Kind of at this point, I'm like, oh my gosh, it might just be a hot mess. I don't know what's going to happen, but okay, we're going to work through this. So this is a tack-it glue. I actually got it from Counterculture. It was on sale, so I added it to my cart with another order. Now you can get this, I believe, through just Amazon, or even Walmart has this tack-it stuff. It's not anything that's like elusively special to counterculture. But basically, it allows you to add a glue layer without being a full-on glue. And so I was able to put it on and then tack on the copper flakes where I wanted it to. But then again, see, as you see, like these copper flakes are literally all over my fingers and I'm stuck to them, or they're stuck to me, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, will I get this where I want it to be? So working on these lines, trying to get them in that 26 to be defined, but not to the point of taking away from the crane, I guess. So then try to get this cleaned up a little bit more using that tacket, and it's hard to see because just the angle and the way the camera is, how this is coming out, but it's a little bit of glue. The best way to think of it is a little glue, a little adhesive. And of course, I'm just covered in these, like I was covered in glitter. Now I've got gold flake issues. I have gold flakes all over me. Well, you know, or copper flakes, I should say. I have gold ones too. I've got gold, silver, and then the copper. Sometimes they give just an elegant touch to things, which I really enjoy seeing. And like I said, my mom liked copper, and so that's another little, nod / tribute to her and everything. So now it's starting to come along. I'm like, okay, now we could take this white part completely off all the way around the edges and really let it see how it shows. Now I didn't get my base of this cup like very coated in glitter. It was just a very light. So I felt like when I peeled that off, it didn't stand out. It wasn't as prominent as I wanted it. So I grabbed some little basically tape. It's a gold, glitter all over the counter. This is a gold, it's technically nail tape. It's a foil tape for putting strips on your nails. But I had bought it for my craft space. So this, you thought the last part was tedious? This was so tedious, trying to get it outlined all the way around the crane and cutting it and making those lines crisp, and then not having it go in between where some of the places that you want the gap to be. So this was super, super challenging. Not gonna lie. There were so many moments in this that I was like, what have I done to myself? What have I gotten myself into? This took way longer than I had ever intended it to take. It does work out in the end. I will tell you, sometimes these things work out in the end, or you just got to push through or take a break and walk away from it. Sometimes that's what you got to do. I tend to probably push through a little more than I should. I don't know about y'all, but I tend to hunker in and be like, well, I'm not leaving until I get it. And that's not always the best plan of attack, because, then I tend to get frustrated, and then that's not a good spot to be either. So, basically just working around. I didn't have a rhyme or reason of where I went. I was just, at this point, I was like, I just got to make this happen. I was in that mode of like, I can't leave it now. I have to figure this out, and I got to get it done. So that's more of what I was doing. I was just like, okay, one strip at a time, to keep my brain happy or active or whatever you want to call it. I tend to bounce around a little bit just because it keeps it interesting for my own sake and keeps me focused on getting it done. And it's just about, okay, one strip at a time, one strip at a time. I do that with life. One foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. We got it 1 minute at a time. Been through a lot in life, and sometimes that's all you can do is just 1 foot in front and then put the next foot in front. 1 moment at a time, 1 minute at a time. And that's how I tend to craft too. It's just, okay, this is where we're at. This is what we're going to do. We got this. We can keep going. I kind of give myself pep talks. Sometimes they're out loud to myself. Yep, I'm one of them. I'll talk to myself. But other times just in my head as I'm going through the process. I don't know about y'all. Y'all have to share with me if you guys like when you craft, if you like to listen to a podcast, or if you like to listen to music, or if you have like a go-to thing. I have a combination. It kind of depends on the mood I'm in. Sometimes a good music playlist in the background is wonderful. That will help keep me going. Other times I will put my headphones in and I'll hunker into a good old podcast. Typically true crime, morbidity related items. Truly probably true crime. I like a few different podcasts, and I don't have too many because I can't get through a lot. I can only get through so many, but my top 3 would be, I have always really enjoyed the podcast Morbid. That's a good one. A lot of true crime. They are actually cousins, but they grew up as like sisters, and so they're just a lot of fun. They also put a lot of emphasis on the victim or victims and not so much the perpetrator. I mean, obviously, perpetrator, you're going through that part, but they really honor the victims, and I just feel like that's phenomenal. Pause here on the podcast part. I've got my X-Acto knife just here trying to help get those laid in place and stuck. Once they're stuck, they were pretty good. It was just getting them into position and then giving them the pressure to stick to the cup, basically. And then back to podcasts. So definitely Morbid. That would be one of my top. I haven't listened to them in a while. I'm kind of hooked on my other 2, which they are basically like sister shows is what I would say. The first one is Obituary. Hilarious. The hosts of that one are just crack me up. They do so many things, and it's just so funny. Again, they deal with death and death-related items, but they tell it in a way that's very open-minded and just in a way that is just very well done, in my opinion. And has a lot of comedy and humor in it, which I think when you're going through something like that, it definitely helps. At least it helps me. And then the other one is the sister kind of show to it. It started, I guess, with Cult Leader. I am working through that one. And normally I go oldest to newest, but I'm actually working the opposite way with it. So it's kind of funny the way I'm listening to the episodes. But one of the hosts from Obituary had started that, and then he did Obituary. He started with Cult Leader, and then he branched off with Obituary with one of his really good friends that host Obituary with him. So anyway, it's just really fun to listen to, and it takes my mind off of the craft in a way that I don't get caught up in my head and questioning what I'm doing with the craft, and gives me a lot of peace. Obviously, when I'm recording tutorials and so forth, if I'm doing the voice part, I'm not listening to those podcasts because I'm talking everybody through my process. Or if, like in this one, I think the family was in the room with me for most of this part of this one, at least this part. And basically, we had music going, and so for copyright purposes, I'm not going to have that music playing in the background for you guys, just because I don't own I don't own that music, so I don't want to get infringed upon with a copyright issue. So, then I come back and I do the voice over and explain what I was doing. So in that situation, we had music going on, and that helped distract me while I was struggling with this. and the camera keeps kind of struggling to stay focused just due to my hands coming in and out of it, and then also how glittery and shiny it is. So I do apologize for that. So basically still outlining, getting a lot closer, and it's looking so good. I can't wait for you guys to see the final take on this cup. It looks really amazing, all in all. But back to the other part with the podcast, definitely share with me, like, your guys' thoughts, what you guys enjoy doing when you are, crafting and so forth. Let me know what it is that you guys enjoy. If it's music, if you like peace and quiet. Whew, I cannot do that though, y'all. If I have peace and quiet, I will get caught up in my head, and it is a scary, scary spot to be. So I don't do that. Some people can be in their own thoughts, and that's amazing to me. I just can't do that. It's just not something that my mind was built for. As my daughter would say, I'm built differently. I don't think I really am built differently in that aspect. I'm sure a lot of people are that way, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am built differently. So, but putting all this around, and I forgot how long this took me. Like, this part took forever, but keeping true to myself. I don't like to speed up videos and parts of videos, so I'm not doing that on this. Plus, that's kind of an editing nightmare. I would tell you, I spend a lot of time editing these tutorials, so what I should say, let me rephrase that. I already spend quite a bit of time editing a tutorial in these tutorials, so adding, like, to try to speed something up or pausing and catching where we need to speed it up, and I'm not the most computer savvy. Like, I do this because I want to share the trade, I want to share the craft, I want people to enjoy and have the peace and comfort that I have been brought by crafting. And I know that people starting out, especially with resin, it's scary. It's an expensive art craft, and you just feel a little bit overwhelmed by all the things. So I'm hoping that I'm bringing some comfort and peace and showing people that. So with that, editing has been a little bit of the interesting part for me, and a little learning curve for me, as I learn, this world and such, learn on that. So with that said, I don't like to cut a lot of the parts out if I can help it. I want you guys to see it in real time so that you can see how long it is. And if you don't have time to watch the whole video or sit here and listen to me chatter and jabber along, then you can fast forward. You can do the editing by fast forwarding. That's how we're going to go with that one. I'll let you guys make the decision too. So that's kind of my thought. But yeah, hopefully y'all are enjoying these. I'm excited. I'm not sure what the next series will be that I drop just yet, but definitely have got some fun things coming. So I know I was trying to keep this series to 7, and so this is the last of them, so that you guys can catch it in 7. Of course, again, if you haven't watched the previous episodes or series, you may not know what that significance is, but definitely go back on that and you'll learn the significance around the 7, and pretty special to have. So I hope everybody's having a fantastic week. It's been a little bit hot where I live, so a lot of indoor time. Actually, pretty good time to get some resin projects started and going, though I haven't made time or space for that. We've been redoing my oldest daughter's room. She's had like pale pink and purple room since she was a baby. So it was time to, since she was 4, since she was my baby. But so we've been redoing her room and getting her new bedding, furniture, and it's been a project. So by the time I do that and work full time, I have not been up to crafting. So I have to get myself back in the right headspace and get some things rolling, y'all. So I had to take a drink here. So thirsty. And my cup that I'm drinking from is not letting me get it out of the straw. I'm like, can you give me some of my water? I think it was stuck to the bottom or something and it wasn't allowing water to come up. But I got some, yay. As you can see, this has been so tedious here. So just trying to get that lined up. It almost looks gold. Oh, my accent came out. It almost looks gold right here. It's not really. I think it's just the way the camera is reflecting light off of it, because it's definitely more of a copper strips of tape. It's just that something is catching it to look gold or green, or the way the camera is processing it, just because truthfully there's so much shimmer on it that the camera is having a hard time getting itself situated. And this is details like this that make you feel like your fingers are giants in an ant's world kind of thing. Because I was like, my fingers are so big, my scissors are so big. The strip just kept like folding over a different way. And I'm like, can we not do that? Could you just lay where I want you to? And can I not just snap my fingers and make this go? And look at how big my finger is compared to that little strand. I mean, it's so thin. And then my scissors are massive. Also, I'm really close to the camera here just because the cup is standing on my table on a tumbler stand, and it makes it really close to the camera, so it makes it even more, it's kind of a funhouse effect that it makes it look even bigger. I'm like, oh man. And it was not always wanting to stick. Like I would start to move it and then it would come off, but you're trying to get those lines. So it's just this whole process. Do not recommend doing it. But in the long run, it comes out. It's just in this moment, I was like pretty over it. I'm not gonna lie. I was very much over it. Like, can we just move on from this? I'm ready to be done. But almost there. Just couldn't get some of this to lay perfectly the way I wanted it to. It was a little challenging. For sure. You know, I get myself into those. I think at that point I did, notice there, the camera kind of skipped a little. I think at that point I did have to walk away because I was just like, I cannot get this to do what I want it to. And I think I finally called it and was like, okay, I'm tired. I'm going to call it and I'll come back. Maybe I didn't call it for like a long time. Might have just went to the bathroom because honestly, I had been doing this for so long. I was like, I have to go and then I'll be back. Because it kind of just looked like I'd paused the video maybe. But anywho, doesn't matter. And so just getting it here, so close yet so far away. But it is so nice to have that on there and get that situated. So not too much longer, and then I'd have this in here. The one thing I'll tell y'all that I did before I went ahead and put another layer of resin on is I did spray this with a Mod Podge sealer. It's just a can of Mod Podge and I sealed it with it. And I will tell you that actually kind of dulled the copper colors, especially on the nail strip pieces. So I spent all this time getting this laid so perfectly and nice and laid out and put in there, and then I sprayed that and it did that where it faded it, and I was so disappointed. I'm not like, didn't ruin the cup by any means, but I think as an artist we're our worst critics, and I definitely was disappointed, shall I say, that I had spent that much time on something that then kind of faded at the end. But it is the bottom of the cup, so it's not like it is the end of the world by any means. It will, it's on the bottom. I'm not sitting there turning my cup over looking at the bottom. I don't really see it. It's more just for my knowledge that it's on the cup and that it is there and present. So it's not the end of the world, but I won't lie that there definitely has been moments where I was like, dang, all that time to get this in place, and then basically I ruined it by spraying it with that sealant. But I didn't want to not spray it, because all this time that I had spent on it, I wanted to make sure that I was able to have it stay before I put a coat of resin on it. So, it's like one of those double-edged swords. Like, I don't know. Obviously, I would do things differently now. It's like one of those things. I probably wouldn't seal it with that. Definitely would seal it with something, but that just, and maybe I just sprayed it too close because I didn't even take it outside. I just did it in my space really quick. I don't know. It was just a weird thing. So I'd say be careful of that, I guess. I guess that's the moral of the story, is like, maybe do a test before you do it. And like I said, I'm probably not going to do this again. This is just on this particular one. Of course, I was doing that, I guess. That's what I want to say. So I'm not gonna, obviously I know I'll incorporate cranes in the 26 and things again, but I don't know if I would do it in this fashion. So this was kind of a one and done. You have those pieces, one and dones, and that's this one. I don't think I'll do it again. This one's special, one of a kind. So almost have it again. This tool came in so handy, just helping push things down, get it lined up, and there we have it. Look, my 26, my crane. And I turned the light off just to try to help so that it could focus. There's the light on, or my I guess actually that was my flash on. So trying to give you guys kind of a look of it. It looks pretty cool. You can see the outline of the double-sided tape, but what I would tell you is, now that it's covered in resin, you don't even see that. So very excited to show y'all the finished product. See ya shortly.